All right, so we'll start momentarily.
That's good. Good morning. I'm Constable Danny McKinnon, Winnipeg Police Service Public Information Officer. Today we have one matter to release on. Recently, the Organized Crime Unit conducted an extensive investigation involving drugs and firearms trafficking. With me today, I have Inspector Elton Hall, the commander of the Organized Crime Unit, and he will go over a general synopsis of this investigation. We just ask that you hold any questions to the end of his presentation. Sir, come on up when you're ready.
Good morning. So in response to the rising level of gun violence in the city of Winnipeg, the Organized Crime Unit identified individuals believed to be involved in the trafficking of firearms. The initial stages of this investigation commenced in May of 2021, at which time the project was named Operation Phoenix. As Operation Phoenix progressed into October, the Organized Crime Unit quickly learned that these individuals were also trafficking large amounts of illicit drugs. The gun and drug trafficking led the Winnipeg Police Organized Crime Unit to seek the assistance of the Edmonton Police Service Drug and Gang Enforcement Unit, the Ontario Provincial Police Central Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, and the Manitoba RCMP Organized Crime Unit. As well, the ATF, Canada Border Services, Correctional Services of Canada, and FINTRAC played key roles in assisting with Operation Phoenix. I bring these agencies to your attention because this trafficking ring expanded outside of Winnipeg to Edmonton, Alberta, the Greater Toronto Area of Ontario, Quebec, and the United States. Operation Phoenix used traditional and covert policing methods to detect and intercept all trafficked firearms before these weapons arrived at their intended destinations. I can say with 100% certainty that the Winnipeg Police Service Organized Crime Unit and partnering agencies seized all known firearms before they were trafficked or while the firearms were in transit. This group of individuals trafficked firearms, many that you see here today, and drugs such as methamphetamine, fentanyl, cocaine, and marijuana, and other contraband. A percentage of the guns displayed here today have obliterated serial numbers and are from the United States. 2 individuals, one from Quebec, one from Alberta, who are associated to this group were observed by officers of the Correctional Services of Canada, the Winnipeg Police Organized Crime Unit, and the Ontario Provincial Police in Kingston, smuggling large quantities of drugs and contraband into both Stony Mountain Institution and Collins Bay Institution through the use of a drone. The institutional value of drugs and contraband seized at Stony Mountain Institution is estimated at $700,000. On December 2nd, 2021, the Winnipeg Police Organized Crime Unit, the Edmonton Police Service Drug and Gang Enforcement Unit, Ontario Provincial Police Central Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, and the Manitoba RCMP Organized Crime Unit executed search warrants in 3 provinces. All agencies mentioned assisted in the successful dismantling of a firearms trafficking ring. This investigation is continuing, and some of the charges have yet to be laid, so I'll provide you with the following information relating to Operation Phoenix. As of today's date, a total of 16 search warrants were executed. 4 of these warrants were executed within the city of Winnipeg. 5 were in rural Manitoba, 3 of which were in the RM of Enola, Manitoba, and 2 were executed at Stony Mountain Institution. 4 warrants were executed in Edmonton, Alberta. 3 of these were at residences, and 1 was at a storage facility. And 3 warrants were executed in a Greater Toronto area, 1 at a residence, 1 at an auto body shop, and 1 at an adjacent building to the auto body shop. As of today's date, a total of 12 individuals have been arrested, and we are seeking warrants for 3 other individuals in the near future. 41 firearms were seized. Many of these in front of us today were trafficked. And in relation to the drugs, all the drugs seized will be measured in kilograms, so we have a single unit of measure. Roughly 165 kilos of drugs were seized in all provinces. An estimated 35 kilos of methamphetamine were seized with a street value of $3.1 million. An estimated 6 kilos of fentanyl was seized with a value of $2.75 million. An estimated 16 kilos of cocaine was seized with a $1.6 million street value. And we estimate approximately 100 kilos of marijuana was seized with a $500,000 street value. The rest of the drugs are in smaller amounts, pill form or powder. This consists of psilocybin, heroin, and ecstasy with a street value of $330,000. We also seized 1 kilogram of cutting agent with a street value of $1,200. The total street value of drugs seized is between $7 and $7.5 million. And we estimate this in street values so people understand that the organized crime groups, cartels, and gangs are out between $7 and $7.5 million right now. Operation Phoenix also seized 11 vehicles, 4 snowmobiles, 3 trailers, a Bobcat tractor. All of these have an estimated value combined of $381,000. And we have frozen the bank accounts of several of the accused in this investigation. So as I said, we've arrested 12 people to date. We have laid charges against 6 people, and I will go through some of these charges right now. Mitchell Bruno of Enola, Manitoba, 40 years of age, is being charged with 6 firearms-related offenses, which includes trafficking and 4 counts of conspiracy to traffic firearms and drugs. Matthew Knish of Winnipeg, 30 years of age, charged with 20 separate firearms offenses. Jason Biggle of Enola, Manitoba, 29 years of age. He's charged with 6 firearms-related offenses, which includes trafficking and 4 counts of conspiracy to traffic firearms and drugs. Stacy DeSantis of Quebec, 25 years of age. This is a male. He's charged with trafficking a controlled substance and conspiracy to traffic in 1 or more Schedule I substances. And Mario Grosso of Alberta, 36 years of age, charged with trafficking a controlled substance and conspiracy to traffic in 1 or more Schedule I substances. Grosso and DeSantis are the individuals involved in the smuggling of illicit drugs into institutional facilities. Joseph Savino of Winnipeg, 35 years of age, charged with 6 firearms offenses and trafficking a controlled substance. Now, before I take questions, we would like to thank the Ontario Provincial Police Central Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, led by Detective Inspector Jim Walker and Detective Sergeant Mike Dial for all their assistance. They played an integral role in Operation Phoenix. As well, we'd like to thank Sergeant Ryan Ellenberger of the Edmonton Police Drug and Gang Enforcement Unit for that unit's assistance. And finally, it should be noted that we required the assistance of FINTRAC over 3 dozen times during Operation Phoenix, so we'd like to thank the individuals of that organization as well. I will attempt to take questions in relation to Operation Phoenix. I know I haven't provided a lot of detail, but this is an ongoing investigation being investigated by multiple agencies, so I'll do the best I can to answer questions.
All right, questions. Skylar from CTOB.
Yeah, hi, Inspector. I'm just kind of mind-boggled here at how 700 grand worth of contraband could get smuggled into a maximum security institution. Can you give us a little more color other than just the drones being used?
It's going to be tough for me to answer that. That's part of the ongoing investigation, and Correctional Services of Canada has an ongoing investigation. Institutional value is it's more than the street value when it comes to drugs and contraband. So it's obviously valued a little higher. But these particular individuals were using a very sophisticated drone, I believe, if I'm guessing, probably between 4 or 5 feet by 3 or 4 feet. It's a really big drone that can carry large amounts of weight, as you can see on the TV. That's the drone that they were using, and that's a picture from Collins Bay Institution in Ontario. And in the first slide, it's a picture of the drone and the quite a big package full of illicit drugs and contraband. The middle picture, if you can see it, is at night. It's a picture of the drone, and there's a large rope or something carrying the contraband into the jail. So yeah, this seems like it's a professional job for these two individuals, but the investigation's ongoing, and that's probably about all I can provide at this time.
You have a follow-up, Skylar?
Yeah, thanks for that answer, Inspector. I've been around for just a couple of years. This certainly is by far the largest investigation that the WPS has been involved in terms of dollar value. Where does this rank for maybe you in your tenure or the service, if you're able to provide that?
So that's a good question. So I'll give you a little bit of background on Operation Phoenix. As you know, Phoenix is a resurrection or a rebirth of sorts, and so these individuals were identified by our organization a couple of years ago. We believe they were trafficking guns in and out of the city of Winnipeg. We attempted before, we had another project called Gold Dust, which we completed a while ago. We tried to investigate these individuals prior to that. We learned that they were very sophisticated, they were well insulated, so we didn't have a lot of success. Given the increase in gun violence this year, in April we sat down with the Organized Crime Unit and figured out a way to maybe re-look at these individuals and essentially resurrect this investigation once again. So this was primarily, and we focused on gun trafficking and only gun trafficking. It started in May. I'll be frank, the first 2 months were very difficult and we didn't have a lot of success. But as the summer progressed, we were able to catch a couple of breaks and start to piece together the operation. And in September, it seemed to really come together. We were able to figure out a lot more about this group of individuals. And October, November, we were full steam ahead in the investigation. So I believe Project Gold Dust probably had a bigger dollar value to the investigation, but in my opinion, this is probably the most important investigation we've had here to date. As you know, there's rising gun violence in the city, and we were able to take a significant amount of guns off the street and drugs. But more importantly, we identified a gun trafficking ring, and with the assistance of some of our partnering agencies, we actually shut that ring down. These guns were going east and west in Canada from different cities.
Eric from the Free Press.
Hi, Inspector Hall. So this is related to your last answer here, but so these individuals were already ID'd, and that's what led to this increased focus on this investigation. What led to the investigation?
Well, we had a prior, as I said, we looked at these individuals prior. We believed they were involved in gun trafficking. Obviously, as you know, policing, you can't just act on mere suspicion. You need evidence. So it took a long time for us to identify the actual individuals, and we wanted to make sure we were identifying high-end gun trafficking. I mean, the street-level gun trafficking is one thing, but you want to try and dismantle a group, and you want to try and prevent guns from coming in and out of the city. So, our first attempt wasn't successful. The second time, obviously, Phoenix worked, and it was very successful, but we weren't totally sure. These were very insulated individuals. They were surveillance conscious. I mean, it was a tough and difficult investigation for us, and it took a long time to piece this together.
Would this be considered an organized crime network?
I'm not going to call them an organized crime network right now because it's before the courts. But they are a group of individuals who are very organized, and they knew what they were doing.
You have another follow-up, Eric?
I've got a few. I'm not sure how much time the inspector has, but conspiracy charges aren't that common, and I know there's not that much you can say, but can you expand a bit on why those charges were made?
I'm not going to expand on that right now, and it's a fair question, but as I said, we're still continuing this investigation. There's other agencies investigating as well, so that's something that'll be, we can address that down the road, and it's something that'll be addressed at the trial.
Skylar, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, I got one more. Thanks. Just in relation to all the vehicles and, various trailers and equipment that was seized, like, when you seize these vehicles, do you believe that they're all related in some way to the trafficking? Maybe that, the vehicles are helping to move the drugs, or, the Bobcat was used to load it up or something like that? Or is this more of a case of these were at the location that you guys searched, so they're being seized just in case?
No, everything we seize in relation to this investigation is because these items are being used or facilitating in some way the crimes that are being committed.
Great, thanks.
Any more, Skylar?
No, I think I'm all right. Thank you.
Eric, back to you.
Great. The firearms, and you may have addressed this, it's just a little hard to hear, so I'm not sure. Were these stolen firearms from within Canada, smuggled from the U.S.? I see the involvement of the ATF and Canada Border Services, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll start off by saying I've addressed the ATF and Border Services, and I'm not going to address them any further for a variety of reasons. But I can tell you that there are guns on this table right now that are stolen. They're stolen from the United States, in particular the Glock handguns you see here. One of them's from California, one's from Florida, one's from Michigan, one's from, I believe, North Carolina. I want to be very clear that we're not suggesting these group of individuals were trafficking any of these guns across the border. What we are alleging and what we think we can prove in court is that they were trafficking these guns east and west in Canada, so it's interprovincial trafficking, but not across the border. But in relation to the ATF and Border Services, I'm not in any position to comment any further on those agencies right now.
Let's see. I see that there was numerous bank accounts frozen. Could you give us an estimate of the number of bank accounts frozen, or number or amount of money now frozen?
I don't have financial numbers for you. I actually don't know what's in their bank accounts. This is an investigation continuing as well. What we'll do is when we have these big trafficking investigations like this here, we'll freeze the bank accounts. It's a proceeds of crime investigation after this. So essentially, we want the government to become involved, and we want them to prove their worth and why they have this money and how much money they have. We believe, to answer your question, we believe the money they have is related to organized crime and was obtained through proceeds of crime and illegally.
Any more, Eric?
Let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking over my notes here. And I suspect I know the answer to this, Inspector Hall, but you had mentioned that there was investigators used both traditional and covert methods. What do you mean by covert methods?
Right, so as I said, this was a well-insulated group. We struggled a long time in this investigation to prove the allegations. I won't get into covert too much. It's investigative techniques we use. But what I will say about that term, and it's a hook in what I said. And I'll call them scenarios. We will run scenarios to try and prevent guns from going onto the street. So, in order to prevent firearms from being trafficked onto the street and going into the hands of gangs or criminals, we needed authority to make sure we can get these guns. And sometimes we can't do it through legal means necessarily. So what we do is we'll apply to our Crown agents in this, and we'll run scenarios by them and explain what we want to do, and they will approve or deny our requests, and they'll give us advice. Our two Crown agents assigned to this are two of the best in Canada. They're experts in these fields. We're very fortunate to have them. So once we feel comfortable and once the Crown agents are comfortable with what we want to do and how we want to conduct the investigation covertly, we then apply for authorization through the courts. And what that means is we will apply to a judge or sit down in front of a judge and explain what our intentions are and what we want to do. And it'll be granted or denied by a judge. And sometimes a judge will grant it and say under certain rules or exceptions we can do what we want to do. So there's a lot of authority and authorization required for us to do covert policing investigations, and then at that point I take it up my chain of command and I have to explain to my superintendent, the deputy chief and the chief why we're doing this, and so there's a liability issue on our end and a public safety issue on our end that we have to address. But as you can see on the table, these guns, when you enter into a gun trafficking investigation, if you let one gun go or you lose a gun and it goes onto the street, in my opinion, it's probably a failure. These handguns and the guns you see here are used for two things. They're used for target practice and shooting human beings, and that is it. So we needed to take some extreme lengths to make sure these guns were not reaching the street. And I'm hoping that sort of covers the question you're asking.
Do police expect to lay charges against the other 6 people that have been arrested, that they just haven't been filed yet, or?
We are laying charges. The charges are there. We've arrested them. It's a court process. It's more of an administrative issue. The other 6 individuals will be, the charges will be laid, and their names, we'll let you know down the road once that happens. This is more of a court issue and a court unit issue on our end. It just takes time. And as I said, there's some other things going on in this investigation right now. As well, we're seeking arrest warrants for 3 more individuals involved in this.
All right, any more, Eric?
This is somewhat incidental, but I mean, of any of the firearms seized, were any legally owned by the people now charged? Are you able to say that, or were they all considered crime guns, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't have numbers for you, I'll say that. Some of these are legally owned, but just because they're legally owned doesn't mean they're stored properly. So a percentage of these guns here, a large percentage of these guns were trafficked, and we caught them in a process of being trafficked. And then there's some guns here that are seized as a result of search warrants. But when you look across this table, I mean, I can identify 3 or 4 hunting rifles, and the rest are, you're looking at machine guns, AR-15s, handguns, an Uzi. I mean, these are guns that people in Canada shouldn't be possessing. They have no business possessing. So whether they're legal or not, they're not allowed to own these, and there's regulations against owning them.
Thanks, Inspector Hall.
No problem.
Any more questions? All right, hearing none, thank you very much
I'm good, thank you.
for calling in. Take care.